Hello everyone. Sophie's World, a novel about the history of philosophy. Today we start the natural philosophers. Nothing can come from nothing. When her mother got home from work that afternoon, Sophie was sitting in the glade, pondering the possible connection between the philosophy course and the healthy mourner Nat, who would not be getting a birthday card from her father. Her mother called from the other end of the garden. Sophie, there is a letter for you. She caught her breath. She had already emptied the mailbox, so the letter had to be from the philosopher. What on earth would she say to her mother? There is no stamp on it, it's probably a love letter. Sophie took the letter. Aren't we going to open it? She had to find an excuse. Have you ever heard of anyone opening a love letter with her mother looking over her shoulder? Later, her mother think it was a love letter. Although it was embarrassing enough, it would be even worse if her mother found out that she was doing a correspondence course with a complete stranger, a philosopher who was playing hide and seek with her. It was one of the little white envelopes. When Sophie got upstairs to her room, she found three new questions. Is there a basic substance that everything else is made of? Can water turn into wine? How can earth and water produce a live frog? Sophie found the question pretty stupid, but nevertheless, they kept buzzing around in her head all evening. She was still thinking about them at school the next day, examining them one by one. Could there be a basic substance that everything was made of? If there was some such substance, how could it suddenly turn into a flower or an elephant? The same objection applied to the question of whether water could turn into wine. Sophie knew the parable of how Jesus turned water into wine, but she had never taken it literally. And if Jesus really had turned water into wine, it was because it was a miracle, something that could not be done normally. Sophie knew there was a lot of water not only in wine but in all other growing things. But even if a cucumber was 95% water, there must be something else in it as well, because a cucumber was a cucumber, not water. And then there was a question about the frog. Her philosopher teacher teacher had this really weird thing about frogs. Sophie could possibly say that a frog consistent of earth and water, in which case the earth must consist of more than one kind of substance. If the earth consisted of lot of different substances, it was obviously possible that earth and water together could produce a frog. That is, if earth and the water went by a frog swamp and tadpoles, because a frog could not just grow out a cabbage patch, however much you water it. When she got home from school that day, there was a fat envelope waiting for her in the mailbox. Sophie had in the den, just as she had done the other day. The Philosopher's Project. Here we are again. We'll go directly to today's lesson without detours around white rabbits and the like. I'll outline very broadly the way people have thought about philosophy from the ancient Greeks right up to our own day, but we'll take things in their correct order. Since Sophie philosophers lived in a different age and perhaps in a completely different culture from ours, it is a good idea to try and see what each philosopher's project is. By this, I mean that we must try to grasp precisely what it is that each particular philosopher is especially concerned with finding out. One philosopher might want to know how plants and animals came into being. Another might want to know whether there is a God or whether man has an immortal soul. Once we have determined what a particular philosopher's project is, it is easier to follow his line of thought. Since no one philosopher concerns himself with the whole of philosophy, I state his line of thought, referring to the philosopher because this is also a story of men. Women of the past were subjected both as female as thinking beings, which is sad because a great deal of every empowering experience was lost as a result. It was not until this century that women really made their mark on the history of philosophy. I don't intend to give you any homework, no difficult math question or anything like that, and conjugating English verb is outside my sphere of interest. So, however, from time to time, I'll give you a short assignment. If you accept the conditions, we'll begin. The natural